All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to episode 120 of the On Air Advocate. Where at the On Air Advocate, we look to provide education, support, and empowerment for all of those with different abilities, mental and medical illnesses, and their caregivers. For those of you who may not know me, my name is Tammy Flynn, and I am the host and producer of the On Air Advocate. And I am super excited if you're here joining us this evening, or whether you're catching this on the replay. Now, as always, if you think the content that we are talking about tonight could be valuable for anyone in your network, please hit the share button and share the love with others. Well, as you guys know, today we are celebrating World Autism Awareness Day. So I hope you all have been lighting it up blue, sporting your blue. And if you have, please drop it in the links, in the comments below. We would love to see how you were spreading awareness today and actually all month long, because we are in National Autism Awareness Month as well. So with that being said, we know that 1 out of 59 children are diagnosed with autism on, a daily, right? Would that be a daily basis, Mia?
Cumulatively, yeah, and that ratio is getting, it's growing as well, yeah.
Yes, and I know you're going to speak a little bit, to that, being within the autism community. And so I just said Mia before we even started. So sorry, we're going to go back and we're going to tell you how great Mia is. So with that being said, on World Autism Awareness Day, I am so excited to have Miss Mia here. She is a mother, a wife, an advocate, and she is the founder, CEO, and host of Mama Build Your Empire. And I am so excited to have her here tonight, telling you about her family's tremendous story, their journey through chronic medical illness, as well as navigating through the world of autism, and you sharing with all the moms here and how Mama Build Your Empire came to be. So welcome.
Yes, Tammy, thank you so much for having me. I'm a big fan of everything that you're doing. I'm a big fan of your show and the podcast. So thank you so much for having me on. And
yes, definitely.
Yeah. And so as for our story, so my son, Roman, my eldest, he's 4 now. We had kind of a long and widening introduction to get where we are today. So he was born at 27 weeks. He was a micropreemie. And so we knew when he was born, he would have stuff. We just didn't know what stuff would look like, right? So he spent 292 days in the hospital, where he was, on death's door multiple times, which he's my little miracle baby. And after 292 days, we were able to come home, but we came home with the trach, a vent, oxygen, 24-hour nursing, the whole total care, kit and caboodle. And so with my son's diagnosis, he was diagnosed with chronic lung disease, more specifically as bronchopulmonary dysplasia. And basically, it's a fancy way of saying he had scarred preemie lungs, right? And so he needed to be on high amounts of oxygen, high levels of ventilation. He was on nitric oxide and an oscillator and, all these different kind of interventions to help him get through some pretty rough times in his life, some pretty scary times. And that caused a lot of scarring and a lot of chronic inflammation. And so, again, we knew he would have stuff. But the narrative was always, by the time he's 2, should be fine, right? The scarring will reduce, and he'll have less of the concerns of the chronic lung disease, and then he'll just be like, every other kid, right?
Right.
But when he, in a number of ways, that was not necessarily the case for Roman. And so even today on his chronic illness side, he still has significant lung issues. He still, when he gets sick, he gets sicker more than the average person. Like, for instance, he got RSV, which is a common childhood illness. He got RSV last October, and he was in the ICU for 9 days, and we thought we were going to lose him. And that was without a trach.
Right.
And so, I feel blessed that we got that long without him getting RSV, to be honest, because had he been younger, had he been not as strong, I don't think he would have come out of that. But so we knew that he was going to have kind of extra challenges as they came along. We didn't know if that would be CP or if it would be, something else that might come along with just the exposure that he had to different things. And it turned out that the thing he had was the autism, which he had a different brain. And that wasn't necessarily, I don't attribute that necessarily to exposure or anything like that. I think that's just, he would have been autistic whether he was born term or preemie.
Okay.
But, you know, we had to go on that journey of navigating what Roman's world looked like and what Roman's world is. And we're still discovering that every day.
And I loved how you versed that when you shared a little bit of information with me, like just navigating through that beautiful world.
Yeah.
Beautiful new world that you didn't know before, but you're learning and you're growing from it.
Yes, yes. And then that's truly how, well, you know, myself and my husband, how we view it. You know, it's, you know, Roman is different, and that's beautiful, and that's okay. And, you
different
know,
doesn't mean less. So
right, exactly. And so I love and cherish every aspect of my child. Like I'm not mom where, you know, if we're in the grocery store and he's stimming or something, I'm like the one that's stimming along with him, to be honest. So I'm the one you'll see spinning in the rice aisle. And so, because, you know, he needs that, he's obviously signaling to us that he has some need. He needs the vestibular input, or he needs something.
right.
So I want to be there with him, helping him get what he needs, you know? So I think that our journey specifically has been very unique, though. And I recognize that because we had our introduction into this world of medical stuff, right? It was
complex medical issues.
Right. It's not necessarily the path that a lot of people go through. You know, I'm not saying that having a child at 27 weeks that's a pound, you know, is you know, there's some type of value to that, and that's not what I'm saying. But we knew that our world was always with him was medical things. You know, our world with him was, we were going to have to navigate therapies. You know, from the start, he came home with therapies. You know. We were going to have to navigate having multiple providers for him, and him going to school. We knew that he was going to have to go through like ECI, and then going and transitioning into the school system. So we were already prepared for those things. So when we got that diagnosis, we kind of came to us a little bit differently, you know. So
because I think that we spoke about when we've chatted and stuff on the phone is that, you know, there's so many of us within that special needs community. We're all in that same body of water, but we're on different ships. And so, you know, with you having a kiddo that not only has autism, but also has complex medical issues, there is such a divide in a way, because they're very different components you have to deal with. You know, different doctors. You're not seeing the same doctors for this as you're seeing for that, and strategizing and meds and that being regulated, because, you know, our behaviors are one thing, but obviously being chronically ill in the hospital on a respirator is another thing, you know? And so I think that the navigation is a little bit different, though we do have a lot of similarities in feeling the same in many ways.
Right. And it also, so it's funny you bring that up too. So say, for instance, prime example, Roman had to go to the neurologist not too long ago. He had a full EEG, which that was not fun. But because he is a very strong-willed person, and I thank him for his kind of strength, because I think that's what's gotten him to where he is today. Because he's a fighter, and sometimes he fights against me. But he had to go to the neurologist, and the question was, well, are we concerned about preemie stuff, or are we concerned about autism related stuff? Like, you know, like what are we dealing with here? And so, you know, are we dealing with trauma from him being hypoxic for, you know, months, or, you know, like what are we dealing with here? So, but navigating, like saying in between straddling the line between, okay, these are our chronic illness type of things, and then these are the autism related things. Sometimes it's a little murky, you know?
And especially because Roman is 4 right now, correct?
Yeah.
And so you kind of in those early stages where sometimes it is hard to identify which one it is, because there hasn't been enough years to kind of separate some of those things out. I know that for many that sometimes becomes a challenge, that you're not sure if our kiddos have some global and cognitive delay, if that's where the tendencies are coming from, because some of those things can mimic. You know, if our global and cognitive delay is low enough, sometimes that can mimic some of these other behaviors as, you know, our kiddos age, that seem as if they would be one thing, but they're really another thing.
Right. And then to your point, we can't forget the fact that he's 4.
Right. So he's still young.
Yeah. So there's the him being 4 thing we have to deal with too. So yeah.
Right. So is it just him being 4? Is it, the world of autism kind of, working its way and starting, or is it the medical side of things? Now, because we are in, Autism Awareness Month, and today is World Autism Day.
Yes.
In this introduction, what age was he when he was diagnosed with autism?
He was 2 when he was diagnosed. Yeah.
So in this last, basically, infancy of 2 years, where have you found for autism, because that is obviously what we're driving awareness to today, where have you found your greatest support, kind of as a newer mom in this space of autism? Where have you found some of the greatest information with this diagnosis?
So the biggest resource throughout my entire journey with Roman has been other parents, other moms, and finding those support groups, especially online. Because in my particular situation, I am I'm kind of separate from my family, right? So my family's in Louisiana, from New Orleans, but I'm in Texas, and so my kind of immediate support system is kind of dispersed. And so when I was going to figure out what did this diagnosis mean, what do I need to be fighting for, what do I need to be searching for, I really went to other moms and started those conversations with them. But beyond that, also, I've been really searching to hear from other autistic people, because one of the things I've always said is that, my journey to advocacy, it's just that, it's a journey. And so I'm still, we've only been in this for a year and a half, this journey, a little bit over a year and a half, this journey. And so my quest is that I help my children self-advocate. I provide them with the resources so that I can also be their advocate as they cannot speak, so that they can have all the tools and resources necessary and needed so that they can be fulfilled individuals. So filling into their cup. And so finding that support with other moms who are walking that journey, especially the ones who are further ahead from me, their kids are adults or much older, that has been instrumental. But then also finding other people who are autistic and seeing how they think about things, what they say about things, and just really taking all that information in, so that I can really round out my advocacy. That's something that I've been definitely working on.
And have you found that your pediatrician per se, or what docs have you found have been the most instrumental, I guess, in speaking with you about autism, getting you, what I'm saying? Because obviously the medical diagnosis behind it, things to expect, things to see, ways to word things, for some kiddos that have a harder time with speaking, I obviously I don't live in that space, in the space of having a young adult with autism. But I know from just all the stuff that I've read, there's so many different things, what I'm saying, in therapies and stuff out there. And it seems like there's so much that some parents are like, oh, this is great. And other parents are like, it's not great. And so did your medical team at all kind of help you, kind of sift through that a little bit, to give you more of the meat and potatoes of it? And then, okay, go look at these other things.
So Roman has several providers, and his pediatrician has always been with us throughout this entire journey. So when he came home, she was there, and she has always been a great resource for us. Anything that we have questions about or we need, she's always been there. And so she's kind of the axis that coordinates all of his care. But the real people who have really helped us figure this thing out have been Roman's therapists. So his speech therapist, his occupational therapist in particular. Because he had been in speech therapy, both for feeding, because he has a G-tube, but also to help him with his speech. And so he had been in that since he's come home. And then he's also had occupational therapy for the same reasons, because when he came home after being pretty much in a medical coma for several months. So he came home, he was newborn. So he he had physical therapy as well. We were able to graduate from physical therapy, thankfully. But the occupational therapist and the speech therapist, they have been with us, through this
4 years.
Yes, and so he's been making slow incremental progress with them, and I really do. I all the ups to them, really.
Right.
But when we got the diagnosis, so before we got the diagnosis, before we went to the neuropsychologist and had him evaluated and to figure out what we were really dealing with, we knew he had sensory issues. That was kind of the first kind of key that something wasn't going, was different here. And so he has particular aversions to touch, cold, hot, sticky, wet, and he was a baby and we're trying purees and he's like, like, what is this stuff? This is terrible. And so he had very strong aversions, and it affected his eating, because he actually doesn't have he has a diagnosis of dysphagia, which is an oral swallowing disorder, but he can eat safely. He has that function, right? But the aversion that he has to textures and to chewing, it's caused him to not be able to eat enough by mouth to sustain him. Right. So he won't get around the nutrition. So that's why he still has his GBUT, and we still rely on it. But along this journey, I would say he has sensory aversions, and they're like, well, talk to your pediatrician about sensory processing disorder. And so we did, and they were great resources on here's what we can do to help him cope with different sensory input and to help him be less sensitive to things. And that has helped. And then when I was like, well, there's something else going on, because now we got this spinning thing, and he's watching the wheels turn, and he's pressing buttons over and over again. Like, this is different, right? They're like, okay, well, ask your doctor about an MCHAT assessment, and then you can, see where to go from there. And we did. And the MCHAT said, high area of concern. So she sent us over to the neuropsychologist for further testing. So the therapists have been kind of like step one for all of my help.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, well, that's such great advice. And I've heard that, and obviously that's why I have this platform, is because I feel the same way, that you learn your best information from other parents that have traveled the journey and traveled it ahead of you. But definitely those therapists, I think for so many different conditions, those occupational therapists, physical therapists, speech therapists, they're kind of that front door. A lot of times they're the first person that you kind of see out of the gate as starting to see on a regular basis for therapies, and how helpful. Then support groups, you said online, did you kind of scope those out just putting in like autism support groups, or did you actually go to some of the autism foundations and stuff, and do they have support groups?
I searched specifically in Facebook, and just to see what came up. And so for me, I'm kind of picky because I'm in a lot of groups, and so I'm kind of picky about where I expend my energy. So reading the descriptions, seeing how active the groups are, and then making the decision to join them. That was kind of my first go, and then I just sat back and just listened, because I'm in the state right now where I'm trying to absorb the information, and then reaching out and asking questions as time went on. So.
Okay. And maybe after we're done with the show, you could drop, if you have like one favorite support group or two, we could drop that below. Because I know sometimes, especially new parents trying to find, they're like, well, which one? And if you put in, autism groups sometimes on Facebook, a ton come up. So wonderful if you're able to kind of tackle that. So, you have been on this journey for 4 years now, and with your whole family as well. And you have another little one, correct?
I do. I have a 1-year-old.
Oh my goodness. And how has that been? With now having is it a baby boy?
Yes, 2 boys.
2 boys. How has that been for Roman?
So they have the most unique and beautiful relationship. Roman, and my youngest is AJ. And Roman isn't a very outwardly affectionate kid. He usually is kind of very flat affect most of the time. But, I'll look over and Roman's like, he'll go over and he'll just put food in AJ's mouth and just feed him. Or they're riding in the car, they're holding hands, like he'll reach over and hold his hand. And so, he doesn't, he won't say, I love my brother. He's not that kid, but you can tell in his actions that he feels that. He shows love every day. So yeah.
Oh, that is beautiful. And I'm sure you have a million cute pictures of that too.
Chasing them around with the camera.
Make sure you catch all those moments. So with all this, you're the mom of two. Where did Mama Build Your Empire come in? How did that even become a thought?
So the Mama Build Your Empire podcast, it was a thought that I had a year prior to I launched it, but it was something completely different. I knew that I wanted to start a podcast. I knew I wanted it to be something about being a medical mom or a special needs mom. But what happened was, the story is that I was working in corporate, which I've been working in corporate marketing for the last 9 years, and or I had been for the last 9 years, and it got to a point, especially when we knew AJ was on the way, that the weight of having a second child, having a child with special needs, which we knew that autism diagnosis was coming down the line, and we knew that was going to change, everything, which did. I knew that I needed to make some very specific, hard, but big, exciting changes in my life and in my career. And so at the same time, I launched, by the time I'm thinking of this, I launched my own business. So I have a digital marketing agency that I launched October of 2017. And and I started that because I needed to be able to design my day, design my time, so I could be there for my kids. I have therapists coming in and out of my house, and be able to still earn an income. Because actually, statistically, moms who have kids with special needs, specifically autism, they earn 56% less than mothers who have children with no health issues. So they earn over half the amount than kids who don't have, moms who have kids who don't have health issues. And they actually earn 36% or 35% less than mothers who have children with other medical issues. So that was kind of the reality that I was living in, because I was having to take off time all the time. I was to go to this doctor's appointment or that doctor's appointment, or to attend this therapy or this parent training. And so that's when I started my business. And then from that, I wanted to start, knowing these statistics, I wanted to start this podcast, and it became very clear that Mama Build Your Empire would be the podcast to create. So the podcast, it's for moms who are growing businesses while raising kids with special needs, because along this journey, as you can imagine, it's isolating. Entrepreneurship is isolating, and then raising a kid with different needs, it can feel very alone. You feel very alone.
Right.
And friends who you've had before, they may not be there. Family may not understand. What you're going through. And so I wanted it to be a place where I could showcase other moms who are doing both things. Because I felt like I was the only one trying to do this.
And I bet you found out that there's a whole lot more, right?
Oh yeah. The amount of people that I have met on this journey, just from the podcast alone, it's mind blowing, and the connections that I've made. Like, there's a very big network of moms who are building their own businesses, building their own empires, so they can do what I wanted to do, which is to be able to be there for their children how they wanted to, without having the worry of, is my boss gonna, fire me, or is my FMLA up, all of these things.
I think that in that employee relationship, especially when we talk about being parents of kiddos with multiple chronic, illnesses, needs, etc., I think it's at an all-time high of parents trying to be creative. How am I going to be at all of these places? How am I going to get the level of care that I need? How am I going to advocate and fight for these needs and make sure that we don't lose them, lose our services, lose the insurance, but also still work at the same time is pretty it's a pretty astronomical feat, in trying to figure all that out. So having somewhere where people can listen in to other parents, because you have on different guests that kind of share their stories and how they're strategizing, correct?
Yes, that's correct. I interview women from all over the country, all over the world, actually, and showing, just their story and sharing their story and sharing their business story, their family story, and then their hopes for the future and what they hope to, how they hope to build their businesses, how they hope to continue to support their families. So, yeah.
Right. That is awesome. And so is that a weekly podcast?
Yes, it's a weekly podcast, and it's pretty much everywhere you listen to podcasts. It's on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Play, and yeah.
And then is there like a private group, a website?
Yeah, so we actually have a private, I actually have a private Facebook group. It's the Mama Build Your Empire Facebook group, which I'd be happy to drop in the comments as well. And so you can go there, talk shop, talk family, wherever you need it to be.
That is so wonderful. And I was going to talk about any upcoming events or exciting things. And what's coming up?
Oh, the Autism Moms Getaway. And I am counting down. Yes, I'm super excited for that. The Autism Moms Getaway is going to be in New Orleans, April 12th through the 14th. And I'm going to see your lovely face.
Yes, to meet each other in person. I'm so excited.
Yes, I'm super excited. Because it's going to be relax, release, regroup. I think is the.
I think you're close. I think it's relax, relate,
regroup.
Yeah.
Right?
No, we're gonna get it.
Yeah.
It's one of those, but we need to do all of that, right? We're gonna do all of it. We're gonna relax. We're gonna relate. We're gonna regroup. We're gonna release.
Yeah.
What are other R words that we can do? Recharge. We're going to have a ridiculously amazing time.
Yeah, it's going to be tons of fun. They're also going to have different breakout sessions on all kinds of different topics related to supporting yourself, supporting your family. So it's going to be great. And then, lots of fun to be had in between.
Yes, and a celebration dinner. And I know now your family originally from New Orleans.
Yes.
Right? Or you're from New Orleans. You grew up in New Orleans?
Born and raised, yep.
Born and raised. So I hear next week you were saying that there's some festival going on.
Yes, the French Quarter Festival. So all kind, like you couldn't turn around the corner and not see something fun to have. So.
And everyone keeps telling me that when I get there, I have to have this like piece of pastry. What is it called again?
Oh, a beignet.
Yes. Everyone's like, and I'm like, should I eat one every day? Because I like to say.
Yes. I mean, I'll show you where to go. It'll be good.
Okay. It's going to be perfect. So, I mean, there is still time, right? I mean, especially if you live nearby, if you're, now me and you are kind of far away in distance. I'm coming from Wisconsin. You're coming from Texas.
Wow.
But you can always jump in your car to get there. I know that they're doing even just one-day tickets as well as for the weekend. So still opportunity for that, but I'm so looking forward to it as well. So, Mia, any last thoughts that you'd like to leave our audience with tonight? Or, new parents, something to remember?
So the biggest thing for me, as I've been talking with lots of other moms who are like me, who maybe have a child who is someone recently diagnosed, the biggest piece of advice that was given to me was don't forget about your whole child. The autism is just a facet, a part of them,
right.
But, you love your whole child, and for me, that was the biggest thing was that, yeah, Roman's autistic. Okay, cool. But Roman is Roman and I love Roman, so look at the whole child. That was my thing I would share and pass along.
Wonderful. I thank you so much. I know that for us moms on the go, it is a late evening. So I thank you so much for making the effort to be here for us for World Autism Awareness Day. I hope that you guys were all sporting your blue today, and you do so all month. Like I said, drop it in the stuff below. Mia's going to drop all of her different sites, her favorite support group, all of that below, so you guys can find all the content. And if you can, meet us in New Orleans. I promise you, it will be a good time. It will be a good time, lots of education and support and empowerment and all of that other good stuff. So on that note, thank you all for watching tonight. If you want to find out any more about the On-Air Advocate services, you can head on over to onairadvocate.com. Or if you want to become part of our private community, you can head up to the top of this Facebook page, hit the blue button, and that will let you into our private group. So on that note, thank you again, Mia.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Happy Tuesday, everybody. Have a great rest of your week. Bye-bye.